They came at dawn with fire in their eyes and stones in their hands. The earth cracked beneath their feet, dry and hollow, the sound echoing like the ribs of a starving drum. The morning was pale and cruel, its air thick with dust and fury. Inside her hut, Nkem did not rise when she heard them. She sat upon the earthen floor, her grey hair knotted loosely behind her head, her eyes fixed on a sealed calabash that had not been opened in 3 years. The first stone struck her wall. Dust rained from the ceiling like dying snow. A child's thin wail rose from outside, hoarse, weak, a sound more air than voice. The villagers shouted her name, each syllable like an accusation. "Rainmaker," they cried. "Are you deaf? Must we all die before you speak?" But Nkem remained still. Her palms rested on her knees, scarred and roughened from years of pleading to a sky that no longer listened. The air carried the scent of ashes and hopelessness. She had once been their pride, the mother of rain, the one who could whisper to the clouds. The people had danced for her, lifted her upon their shoulders when thunder roared. But that was before the drought, before faith turned to fury. Now, they came to drag her from silence. Chief Uduak led them, tall once, now reduced by hunger and time. His robe, once deep indigo, hung like a shadow on his thin frame. "Enough," he commanded, his voice hoarse. "Let the old woman speak before you kill her." The crowd quieted, though their anger still smoldered in their eyes. Nkem lifted her gaze slowly. Her voice, when it came, was the brittle rasp of old leaves. "I have spoken to the wind," she said. "It told me the rain does not fall on the blood of the innocent." A murmur rippled through the crowd. Chief Uduak's jaw clenched. "You dare accuse us," he barked. "You let our children starve, our crops wither, and still you speak of innocence." Her gaze did not waver. "You harmed my son," she said. "He was all I had, and you killed him for a theft he did not commit. You buried him beneath the sacred tree and thought the gods would bless you for it. Now you ask me to summon mercy for your sins." Her words spread through them like poison. Someone shouted, "She lies." Another hurled a stone. It struck her shoulder, drawing a thin line of blood, but she did not flinch. Her silence seemed to grow heavier, pressing down on every heart. That was the last day they called her Mother of Rain. From then on, she was only witch. Years later, her granddaughter Adanna would hear the tale not as history, but as inheritance. She grew up in the city, far from the parched soil of the north, where stories of drought sounded like superstition. Her mother rarely spoke of the village. When Adanna once asked about the grandmother she had never met, her mother's answer was a sigh. The rainmaker traded mercy for grief, and grief never feeds a child. When the drought crept south and even the capital's rivers ran thin, Adanna joined a government research team sent to investigate the phenomenon. She was an environmental scientist, trained in climate models, not myths. But when she read the name Okuta on the assignment paper, she felt a chill that no heat could explain. The journey north was long. The road turned to dust, and the trees shrank into skeletons of bark. The farther they went, the quieter the world became, as if even the wind had stopped believing in movement. When they arrived, the village looked like a wound that refused to heal. The roof sagged, the wells were hollow, and the air hung heavy with despair. The villagers watched the convoy roll in with empty eyes. They did not speak. They did not smile. They had learned that words do not summon rain. Chief Uduak greeted them at the edge of the square. He was older, his beard streaked with ash gray, but the steel in his voice remained. "You come with your machines and your city tongues," he said, squinting against the sun. "But this drought is not born of your science. It is born of sin." Behind him stood the royal priest, Obina, tall, gaunt, his white robe stained with dust. His gaze lingered on Adanna longer than the rest. "You," he said quietly. "You are her blood." Adanna froze. "Whose blood?" He did not answer. When she asked to visit Nkem, the chief hesitated. She lives beyond the baobab, on the hill no one climbs, he said. The gods turned away from her long ago. You'd be wise to do the same. But she went. The path to the hill was steep, twisting through patches of cracked earth and windswept stones. Dust clung to her boots and hair, and the silence pressed close like cloth. When she reached the hut, she saw an old woman seated on the ground outside, her spine curved, her skin the color of the earth itself. The calabash lay beside her, sealed tight, its wax glinting faintly under the sun. For a long moment, neither spoke. "Grandmother," Adanna said softly. Nkem's eyes lifted, slow but sharp. They were not the eyes of someone fading, they were the eyes of a storm that had waited too long. "You have your mother's eyes," she said. "Does she still hate me?" "She doesn't speak of you." "I know." The old woman turned her gaze toward the horizon. "The sky told me." They sat in silence, the air heavy with things unspoken. "Why are you here?" Nkem asked at last. "I came with the research team. We are studying the drought." The old woman gave a faint, brittle laugh. "Studying," she said. "You came to measure what cannot be measured." "I came to help," Adanna said. "Help?" Nkem's voice trembled, not with weakness, but with something older, deeper. "The sky listens to blood, not to machines." Adanna frowned, uneasy. "What do you mean?" But the woman only looked away. "The rain remembers what we try to forget." The wind picked up, swirling dust around them. It whispered like a voice half lost in time, and for a fleeting second, Adanna thought she heard her own name within it. That night, she could not sleep. Her dreams were full of whispers and thunder. She dreamt of standing on the hill with the calabash in her hands, whispering words she did not understand as lightning danced behind the clouds. When she woke, her skin was damp, as though touched by unseen rain. At dawn, the wailing began. Another child had died overnight. The cries echoed through the village square, raw and endless. Chief Oduak gathered the people. His voice cracked under the weight of it. "We cannot go on like this," he said. "Bring her down from the hill. If she truly carries the curse, let her end it, or we will end her." The crowd roared its agreement. They moved as one, a wave of desperation and rage. When they reached her hut, they found her sitting where she always sat, calm as stone. She did not resist when they dragged her down the hill. Her eyes scanned the crowd, searching, until they found Adanna standing among them. Their gazes locked, old pain meeting new fear. Then Nkem spoke, her voice carrying through the still air. "The rain will not come until truth does." And as her words echoed, the sky above them shifted, darkened, not with storm, but with memory. The wind turned cold. Somewhere far above, thunder murmured like a god stirring in sleep. The morning rose heavy with silence. Not the peaceful kind, but the sort that clings to the bones and seeps into the air like a wound left open too long. The wind, once playful among the palms, had stilled. Even the birds refused to sing. From the hill overlooking the village, smoke rose from the shines, thin, uncertain lines dissolving into a copper-stained sky. The land was dying, and it knew it. Nkem's hut stood apart, small against the stretch of dry plains, her thatched roof bowed under the weight of memory. The night before, her wails had carried through the village like an old song, the kind that made children clutch their mothers and men stare into their cups. No one had slept. By noon, they sent for her granddaughter. Beneath the ancient Iroko tree, the elders gathered, wrapped in faded wrappers and tired pride. Their eyes had the dull gleam of men who had bargained too long with gods who no longer listened. Elder Keto, tall and frail, stepped forward. His voice broke like brittle twigs. "Child," he said, "you know her heart. Tell us what she intends." The people grow desperate, and desperation makes men forget kindness. The girls' gaze swept across their faces, men who once praised Nkem as the rain mother, now reduced to whispers and trembling. She blames you, she said softly. For Kolu's death. A murmur rippled through them like wind over dry leaves. Some looked away, others spat into the dust, but Keto's face hardened. She hides behind grief, he said. But she forgets, we buried sons too. If she will not summon the rain, we will find another who can. You can't replace her, she said, her voice trembling. You call something darker than rain. But his eyes, sunken and hollow, already carried the shadow of his decision. That night, she followed him. The moon bled red across the horizon, swollen and low, painting the fields in the color of rust and omen. The air smelled of dust and burning oil. The elders walked in silence toward the old quarry, their feet kicking up small storms of ash and memory. Each man carried a calabash and folded white cloth, offerings for gods they did not understand. From the shadows, she watched. At the center of the clearing stood a man unlike the others, Chief Odio of the neighboring clan. His skin glistened with oil and soot, his chest marked with symbols that twisted like serpents in the firelight. His grin was sharp, his presence colder than iron. When the chanting began, the sound scraped the air. It was an old tongue, but wrong somehow, harsh where it should have flowed, angry where it should have pleaded. The calabashes clattered against stone, the smoke rose thick and bitter. Elder Keto's voice broke through. Spirits of the storm, hear us. Nkam's silence has cursed us long enough. We offer her gift in exchange for yours. Bring us rain, even if it must drown her name. The wind stirred, sudden and sharp. The torches flickered. Dust rose in a spiral, encircling them like invisible hands. Chief Odio lifted his staff, his grin widening. The rain will come, he said, but not without a price. When they left, she ran. Barefoot through the torn paths, her feet cut and bleeding, the moon chasing her shadow. She reached the hut breathless, chest heaving. Nkem was sitting outside, her face turned toward the night sky, her eyes dark mirrors of sorrow. They have done it, haven't they? The old woman asked. Her voice was quiet but carried like thunder on still air. The girl nodded, her voice breaking. They made a pact. Chief Odio led it. A long silence followed. He is no priest, Nkem said at last, rising slowly, her joints creaking with age and fury. He is a hunter of spirits, he traps what should never be touched. They have traded their souls for water. Her eyes burned as she looked toward the distant quarry, where faint drums began to echo. They think my silence is cruelty, she said, but silence is mercy when truth kills. The girl swallowed hard. Then tell me the truth. Tell me why the gods turned away. The old woman turned, and for a moment, her face seemed carved from the earth itself, ancient, cracked, unyielding. Because I broke the covenant, she said, her voice trembling with grief. Because I killed the last rainmaker. The words hung heavy in the air. My son, she continued, Kolu, he was meant to lead after me. But he refused the offering. He said the gods were cruel, that no life should be taken for rain. The drought came, and the people begged me. I called the storm, and it asked for balance. Her voice broke, and tears carved paths through the dust on her face. I gave it my son. I gave it my blood. The girl stepped back, her breath catching. You sacrificed him. I gave him, she whispered. So others might live. But the gods never forgive a mother's offering. Since then, the rain has feared my hands. The night trembled with her confession. Then, from far off, the drums deepened, a low, rhythmic thunder crawling through the ground. Nkem's head lifted. They are calling him, she said, her eyes narrowing. Odio is waking the spirits of the quarry. What will happen? The sky will open, she said. But not with rain. With fire. The dawn came blood red. The air was thick, swollen with heat and an unnatural hum. The villagers gathered again at the quarry, their chants loud and wild, their desperation spilling into madness. Chief Odiyu stood at the center, bare-chested, his staff raised to the sky. The clouds gathered above him, black, swirling, boiling. Lightning flashed, distant but near enough to smell. Then, from the ridge, Nkem appeared. Her robe flared around her, the fabric catching the rising wind. The villagers fell silent. The earth itself seemed to hold its breath. Odiyu, she called, her voice ringing through the storm. You summon death, not rain. He turned, his grin cutting through the darkness. Your time is gone, old woman. Let the new god speak. He thrust his staff into the ground. The air cracked, a blinding flash, a scream of thunder that split stone. The sky opened, not in blessing, but in fury. Fire poured from the clouds like molten rain. Men fell, their cries swallowed by the storm. Lightning twisted across the quarry, chasing shadows, burning the air itself. Nkem stood in the center of the chaos, her staff raised, her eyes ablaze. The storm curled around her, drawn to her voice as if remembering its true master. But Odiyu lunged, his dagger gleaming. She turned just as the blade struck her chest. Her body arched, her mouth forming a soundless cry. Lightning tore the sky apart above her, and for a moment, the world turned white. Then, a whisper. One word, carried on her last breath. And the rain began. It fell with fury and mercy, drenching the cracked soil, filling the air with the scent of rebirth. The dust became mud, the fire hissed and died. Villagers fell to their knees, faces lifted in awe and shame. Chief Odiyu tried to flee, but the lightning found him, a single, merciless strike that shattered the ground beneath his feet. When the smoke cleared, nothing remained but ash and silence. The rain did not stop. The girl ran to her grandmother's side. Nkem's breathing was shallow, her eyes soft now, distant. Mama, she whispered, you did it. You brought it back. The old woman smiled faintly. No, she said, her voice no stronger than the rain's whisper. You will. And with that, her hand fell still. The storm raged on, washing the sins of men into the earth, while the hill above the village became the first place the green returned. The rain did not stop for 3 days. It hammered the thatch, filled the cracked pots, and rinsed the ash from the quarry until the land tasted like mercy. When the clouds finally thinned and the sun eased back, Odiyu rose from its knees to a world scrubbed clean, and strangely new. They buried Nkem beneath the iroko without drums or fanfare, because some debts have to be repaid in silence. Adanna stood at the head of the grave, her palms caked with wet earth, the memory of fire still warm under her nails. Around her, the villagers watched with faces smoothed by rain and shame. Elder Kato stepped forward, his voice smaller than the wind. We were wrong, he said, and the confession fell into the damp soil like seed. The elders bowed their heads, some of them wept. It was Chief Oduak who came then, not with the swagger of a man who claimed power, but with the slow, steady gait of someone who had seen too many seasons and could no longer bear silence in the face of truth. He placed his palm on the iroko's rough back and, to the surprise of many, asked for forgiveness on behalf of the men who had traded hope for fear. His apology was simple and heavy, and it mended something small and crucial in the air. Adanna let the words sink in, then spoke, not as the frightened child who had run through thorn and moonlight, but as the keeper of what had been broken. Nkem chose the people, she said. She gave us rain at the cost she could not bear. We must give her name back its honor. Her voice carried, and the village listened. They did not sing that day, but when the people left the grave it was with hands ready to rebuild and voices that would not forget. Chief Odiyu lay at the quarry, turned to ash and lesson, his dagger gone from the world, his hubris a cautionary whisper. As for Adanna, she stayed on the hill long after the last shovelful of earth fell. The puddles around her reflected a sky that finally remembered how to laugh. Chief Uduak walked beside her for a while, and together they watched the green creep first along the ridges and then into the fields, timid at first, then insistent. Mama Nkem's breath left the village, but her story did not. In the years to come, mothers would tell it to children as they taught them to plant and to pray without bargaining. They would call her name when clouds gathered, not to ask for bargains, but to remind the sky that a woman once gave everything so very many might live. And when the rains came thereafter, gentler, promised, the people of Odioro lifted their faces and whispered Mama Nkem's name into the wet air. The sky listened. Adanna bowed her head, feeling that the earth had finally learned to keep its word.